I wanted to ask about ISIS and the ongoing bombing campaign in Syria and Iraq. Congress left without really weighing in on this, whether it's appropriate for the U.S. to lead a bombing campaign there. You said in an appearance on MSNBC that you thought it made sense to wait for a new Congress to weigh in on whether you should authorize military force there. In the meantime, bombing is happening. There is war happening. What's the justification for Congress not weighing in? Is the Congress abdicating its responsibility to authorize military force?
Well, Jonathan, in an editorial that was published in your own newspaper, I clarified what I think has been misunderstandings or perhaps mischaracterizations of a quote on an MSNBC interview. The larger point here is that ISIS is a real and present threat to Americans and American interests in the Middle East, to our allies in the region, and I think ultimately to our homeland. I urge the leadership of the Senate to stay in and take up, debate, and ratify an authorization of the use of military force in this campaign. I think that we are frankly beyond the War Powers Act notifications that we received from the President, and that this is the first order of business the Senate should take up upon our return. We began the hearings that I think we need to go through, both Armed Forces and Foreign Relations Committee. Armed Services and Foreign Relations need to debate the strategy. There are, I think, legitimate questions about the strategy that's been laid out by the administration, and I understand and recognize that before the American people should be comfortable committing the blood and treasure that this conflict will require, they should have a full airing in the Capitol, both sides of the strategy, and the Senate should take up and debate and vote on an authorization.
Are you concerned that hasn't happened already while a bombing campaign is ongoing?
Yes.
So why is Congress not in Washington debating this now?
Because the leaders of both parties, both chambers, agreed it was more important to face the electorate. What I did say in the MSNBC interview was, you can look at this both ways. From a constitutional perspective, you can say, would you rather have a vote taken leading us into possibly a long war before an election or after an election? And what I said in that interview was, some could argue it is better to have the electorate weigh in and then have that new Congress authorize what could be an expensive, difficult, and long war than have a group of senators, many of whom are about to retire or arguably be defeated, cast that vote before facing the electorate. It was that back and forth with an MSNBC interviewer that I think has been miscast. I think we should have taken up and voted on an AUMF, particularly because the 2002 authorization is frankly overstretched, has long expired, and doesn't support the current campaign.
Thank you, Senator. Any other candidates like to add anything on that topic? Mr. Groff?
I'd like to add that rather than play politics with our soldiers' lives and wait until after election on some pseudo poll from the electorate, I would argue that there was a need for safety among the incumbents to not create the kind of controversy that may question their judgment. Mr. Coons in the past has voted without invitation for an attack on Iran. The president was not asking for authorization, but he stood with many Republicans and voted to pre-authorize a war with Iran. He has voted for every single conflict, so I would be a little nervous on his part as well with his record and getting our boys and girls in harm's way. So I think we need to look at our international entanglements. I think we have to consider our finances as well, and of course, the hyperbole that is now following in the media on this ISIS threat to our very being over here in the United States. So I would hope that some good strategies could come out, but I feel that after watching the Frontline episode last night that perhaps they're not forthcoming.
Mr. Wade, anything you care to add, sir?
Sure. It's not too long ago that this administration, the leadership of Senator Coons' party, characterized ISIS as the junior varsity. The junior varsity. It's not too long ago that layoff notices were sent to our men and women in uniform serving in Afghanistan. Wasn't too long ago that the military plans were to downsize the Navy to a size not seen since the 1915, 1916, and the Army down to its size of 1940. We have a failure of leadership. Now, I understand that ISIS is the most brutal movement to emerge in the world since the days of the Nazi SS. It's almost as if the ghosts of the Nazi SS officers have emerged and animated those in the Middle East. We will have to lead the world in destroying ISIS and those who share that ideology. And as much as I understand the risks, we have a broken promise to our veterans. And as Delaware's independent voice, I will tell you this. I will not vote in favor of a War Powers Resolution Act until I know that every promise to every veteran has been kept. We will not deceive young soldiers by not keeping promises to our old soldiers.
Mr.
And
Wade,
that's
thank
my
you.
promise.